community-based processes, community activities such as this one. We partner with Foothills Fentanyl a lot to do different community activities. We do a lot of presentations on different substances. It's been a lot of fentanyl lately just because that's so prevalent in our community. But we also have a youth board. A couple of my youth board members are here this morning. Right there. And Matthew over there. We're excited to have them here. But Youth Board's been in existence for 35 years. Angie and I are both alumni of the Youth Board. So it's one of my favorite things about my job. Our Youth Board is our peer leadership team. They go out to the high schools and help us educate their peers on the dangers of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. They also have a podcast, so I'd love to encourage you to listen to that podcast. It's called But They Don't. They do everything with that. They produce it, edit it, research, and all of that. They have several episodes on fentanyl, so check that out. Behavioral Health also has a table set up over here where we have Narcan. Behavioral Health is a community distributor of Narcan, so anybody can come into our office who is at risk of an opioid overdose, or they know someone who's at risk of an opioid overdose, and they can get Narcan for free. The Narcan looks just like this right here. This is the one I carry in my pocketbook. So you can come see Colin or Emma, and they will be able to give you Narcan for free after just a short little training. And now I'm going to give Angie a few minutes to talk about the treatment side of behavioral health.
Hey, good morning. Angie Farmer. I'm the executive director at Behavioral Health. I've been there forever and ever, and Jessica kind of told you how long, because I was on the first youth board 35 years ago, and then have been employed for 28 years. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about our office, who we are, what we do, and what we offer. We have a plethora of services on the treatment side. But we are a private nonprofit organization. We're our county's authority for substance abuse treatment, prevention, intervention, and recovery services. We've been in existence for over 50 years serving our community. We're really super excited that we will be making a move towards the end of this year to better serve our community. We're moving here to Easley, so get ready for us. We're coming. We're so excited. That'll be coming up soon, which will give us an opportunity to serve our patients so much more than what we're able to do now. Tell you a little bit about our treatment side. We have about 17 clinicians. All of our clinicians are certified addictions counselors, and most of them are licensed or in the process to be licensed. So they're highly qualified, highly skilled clinicians that can treat what we call co-occurring disorders. What we know about substance abuse is that almost always it goes hand in hand with some type of mental health issue. And so our clinicians are highly skilled and highly trained to be able to manage those issues. We do individual counseling, a variety of different group counseling. The most intensive treatment program that we offer is called intensive outpatient treatment. It's basically like one step from going inpatient treatment. It allows the individual to work or be at home with their families, but also get the needed treatment. So it's 9 hours of treatment a week. We also require them to get involved with some community support groups and things like that. We know once they leave treatment that they need to be involved in some type of support recovery service in order to maintain long-term recovery. One of the programs that I'm most excited about that we feel like maybe most beneficial to those with an opioid use disorder is our medication-assisted treatment program. For those of you who don't know what medication-assisted treatment is, there are several medications out there for individuals who have a substance use disorder for opioids or for alcohol, and they have been FDA approved. They've been proven to be very, very beneficial. It is not a replacement for their substance. What we do is we use medication-assisted treatment as a gap. That gives them an opportunity to stop using their substance, the opioids, to become substance-free and taper off of the medication, hopefully, in order to, maintain long-term recovery. What we understand with opioids is that it's so dangerous to stop using. You've got your risk for overdose, fatalities, major health issues. So the medication just gives them an opportunity to engage in treatment, maintain work, maintain their family situation, get the help that they need, and then work towards long-term recovery. So we're really excited about that. The 4 medications that we use are Suboxone, Subutex, Sublocade, and Vivitrol. They're all really great medications that have been proven to be very beneficial. I have seen some miraculous things happen with our patients where they've been able to go back to work, they've been able to repair damage within their family, they have reduced their risk for overdose, and have been able to maintain sustained long-term recovery. So it's a really awesome program. We've recently started doing some services within our detention center, which I'm super excited about. We've partnered with the county on this. We're able to go in and meet with some inmates there, offer some services on site, including medication-assisted treatment. What we understand about people who are incarcerated for any length of time, when you're inpatient or you're incarcerated and you don't have the ability to use a substance, your tolerance for that substance reduces. So you're at higher risk for a fatal overdose once you leave that institution, wherever that's at. And so the medication-assisted treatment gives them an opportunity to basically be safe and not use once they get out of the detention center. So it's really cool stuff. We've been able to serve at this point, I think we've served over 200 inmates in the detention center. We've got over 45 that have been on medication-assisted treatment. So it's really, really working well. Other than that, we provide all kinds of services for anybody and everybody. We are the place that you can go and get any type of treatment, whether it's for your children or for your family. We offer services for children and adolescents as well, and adults for pretty much any kind of behavioral health issue there is, depression, anxiety, you name it. We work with a lot of people who have a trauma history as well. So that is a little bit about who we are, what we do. We serve approximately 1,600 patients a year. So that's who we are. If you got any questions, you're welcome to come talk to one of us. But we really appreciate you guys being here. We're honored to partner with Foothills Fentanyl Fight. We are so excited about the work they're doing in our community, and anytime we can help them, we're ready. So thank you guys for being here today.
Now we're going to turn it over to Lieutenant Blankenship and Lieutenant Robinson from the Pancakes County Sheriff's Office, and they're going to talk a little bit about opioids and what they're doing in our community.
First and foremost, how was breakfast? Round of applause for the folks that also, a round of applause to each and every one of you that took time out of your Saturday morning to come here and support Foothills Fentanyl Fight. I don't know if you truly realize the mission that they have set out to do and the burden that they have for folks in our community. This is not just a group of people that woke up one morning and said, hey, I want to find something that I can help improve our community. These are people that have suffered true tragedy in their family. And they're willing to take that pain and anguish and turn it into something good. And I can't help but think, as I stand up here and I say those words, but be reminded of the story of Joseph from the Bible, where he was threatened to be killed by his brothers. He was sold into slavery. And yet he always put his trust and faith in the Lord. And he took the tragedy of his life and he entrusted it in God, and it turned out to be something glorious. And that's exactly what these people are doing, is they are taking a tragedy in their life and they're making a difference. And they're doing it not because they expect to change the masses, but they're willing to do it to save one person. And that's why Andy and I are up here today. This is mostly an educational piece for those of you that don't know a lot about fentanyl and opiates and opioids and how we got where we're at. But it's an education piece because our goal in our entire career has always been, if we can save one person, that's a career well spent. If we can save one life from being affected negatively by crimes within our community, and the reason we're here today, if we can prevent one person from losing their life to fentanyl poisoning, then it's worth every effort that we make. So I'm Tommy Blankenship. I'm the training lieutenant at the Sheriff's Office. I've worked there since 2005. Worked in the narcotics unit with Andy. I did that for about 11 and a half years and got to really see the change within our community here, going from majority of our cases being methamphetamine related to where, what Andy will speak on here shortly, what they're seeing now that I'm out of that unit, fentanyl based, so much. But Andy, if you want to introduce yourself to us.
Yeah, just super quick. I'm Andy Robinson. I'm the lieutenant over Special Operations at the Sheriff's Office. Been there since 2005. Went through uniform patrol. I've been in Special Operations since 2011. So been over 13 years just doing narcotics. Last couple of years being the supervisor of narcotics and the community action team, our CAT guys. Like I said, helping Tommy do this. We've done drug talks for, I don't know, a long time. Ever since he started narcotics, and me too, we've always been kind of the presentation folks. We kind of, like I said, we got a little bit of time, but all of this is important, but we'll try to run through some of this. I know this will probably break Tommy's heart. This is more the scientific based, what it is, chemical stuff, things like that. So we're going to kind of go through really what it is. We'll skip a little bit of this just to give you some more time, hopefully for some questions. And we really want to explain kind of how we got where we're at, and then also like what we're doing now. So like I said, we'll just.
So a lot of those first couple of slides are just how we ended up with the fentanyl epidemic, how we ended up with fentanyl in general, and it dates back thousands of years to opium being created or being harvested basically and utilized as an analgesic for pain relief, and then how over time chemists, scientists, doctors have slowly changed this from something that was occurring naturally in nature that was utilized for pain relief to something where we've mimicked those chemical structures to create something that's completely man-made out of a lab to a point. It all has to start somewhere, but is man-made to mimic those molecular structures because we have those receptors in our brain. Our brain was created and designed to have the ability to utilize those herbs and that medication to relieve pain, but what we've created is something that's so much more powerful. So this, you can look at this chart. If you can't see it from back there, you may have to move if you want to, but it shows the potency of all of the different pain relieving medications that tend to be mostly used here, especially in South Carolina. Morphine is 222 times stronger than ibuprofen, 360 times stronger than acetaminophen. And then it continues to exponentially get stronger all the way up to where you have fentanyl, which is 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine. So you're looking at the potency level of its pain relieving capabilities, but the problem with those things is as you increase those, you start to look at an increase in your physiological addictions as well as a psychological addiction.
Yeah, and what this represents here is basically for people that don't have any sort of tolerance, like what Angie was talking about earlier. These would be basically a potential lethal dose for anyone who doesn't have any sort of built-up tolerance. You can see there's kind of a dime back there in the background to represent the size of what we're talking about. So when you start getting into fentanyl, like I said, a little bit goes a long way, right? So, and one of the biggest things we kind of wanted to, we get a lot of times is, how did we get here? How did we, you guys probably only heard of fentanyl over the last couple of years. Is really the first time y'all started hearing about it. We've heard about it earlier than that, but that's just because we're in this world. So we get a lot of questions like, where did this come from? Why are we in the problem we're in now? So it really, in my opinion, like I said, opium, opioids, like I said, we walk hand in hand with history with opium. That's just human nature. But in 1996, that really seemed to be the we opened up Pandora's box, if you would, in my opinion. That's when Oxycontin got approved to be distributed out throughout the country. There was some sketchy studies, in my opinion, that were done, and I think for profit, it got signed off on, and it was deemed as basically a miracle drug. It'll relieve, it's a great pain reliever, no addiction properties, basically just a perfect drug, right? And like anything that claims to be perfect, it's not always the case. So as you can see here in 2021, Oxycontin became the best-selling narcotic. 2008, it became a $2 billion business. And so we started seeing, the biggest issue we would have is you would start seeing people would get paid, people would get benefits for the prescription, the prescribing your pharmaceutical companies. You've probably heard of Purdue Pharma, the Saxon family. In my opinion, probably the most successful drug dealers in history. And ruined a lot of lives just for money when it comes to this. So.
And you'll notice the trend right here where it hits 2012, more than 255 million opioid prescriptions. And the unique thing about this is, as I watch this flow chart of as we pass through the years, it kind of mirrors exactly what we were seeing in the narcotics unit. I started doing drug investigations with Pickens County in 2007 and knew what heroin was. You know, you go to all the training classes in law enforcement, they teach you about all the drugs that you're going to see, that you're going to deal with. And then when you go back to wherever you're working, your microcosm of drugs kind of shrinks. And what we were seeing majority of the time was methamphetamine. You know, we would see some marijuana use, we would see some psychedelics here and there, a little bit of LSD, DMT, mushrooms, things of that nature. But our breadwinner, so to speak, in this area was always methamphetamine. Did numerous undercover operations, was undercover myself for several years, actually making undercover purchases of illicit drugs, and the majority of the time, from 2007 up until 2012, it was mostly methamphetamine. That was our staple. In 2012 was the first time that I've ever purchased, seized, or witnessed an amount of heroin in Pickens County. Not to say it wasn't there, but it wasn't rampant enough to where we were purchasing it on a regular basis. And from 2007 up until 2012, we had sat down and interviewed almost every single individual that came into our detention facility for a possession with intent to distribute, or a trafficking methamphetamine charge. We would talk to every single one of them because our goal was to debrief them and to figure out where they're getting their drugs, because the majority of the time they were someone that was suffering from addiction, that had been arrested for a possession amount, and our goal was not to send them away forever because they had something that we didn't have, and it was information. So when we would debrief these people, we would always start with the same question. And it was a little bit out of curiosity, but it also helped us with our drug education programs, was what was the first illicit drug that you have ever used? And unanimously, 100% until 2012, every single one of them said, well, I smoked marijuana first. Marijuana was the first illegal drug I used. So that fed into our drug talks where we would explain to people, listen, marijuana may not look like it has all of these terrible retributions that come over long-term use, but every single person that I've ever talked to that had a methamphetamine addiction started with marijuana. So I'm not telling you if you smoke marijuana you will be addicted to methamphetamine, but there's a good chance that if you're addicted to methamphetamine, it's because you made that choice to use that joint that first time. So it's always easiest in the old adage to just say no. In 2012, we met a new monster. We had an individual who actually introduced me to a heroin dealer, and I started making illicit purchases or undercover purchases of heroin from this individual. But before that, we debriefed this young man. He sat down before us, and we asked him that same question. What was the first illicit drug you've ever used? And he blew my mind because he said heroin. And I said, excuse me? The first illicit drug you've ever used was heroin. How did you go from 0 to 100? The whole, can you buy drugs? Do you want to be an informant? All of that stuff went out the window because I could not imagine how, he was 20, how a 20-year-old young man had thrown his life away to heroin so quickly. And his story goes like this. He was playing football at a local high school, suffered a knee injury. After his knee surgery, he was prescribed Loratab prescription. And he was directed to take Loratabs one every 4 hours to help with the pain, to keep him from hurting. So he followed doctor's orders. And when his prescription ran out, he went back to the doctor and asked for more. They said, you don't need it. But he had already developed a physiological and a psychological addiction to a synthetic opioid. So then he started looking for ways to meet that need, and he called his friends. Yes, I know someone has a prescription. They'll sell them to you. Well, then the problem is, and if you go back to that chart that has the strengths, the potencies, he was working his way down that because suddenly purchasing Loratab didn't meet the high that he needed. It didn't meet his need physiologically. He would get sick if he didn't have a certain amount, and it started to cost him way too much. So he said, I need something stronger. And his friend says, I know a guy that has Roxy's. You can buy Roxy's. Okay, I'll go get some Roxy's because they're more potent, working down our list. Suddenly he develops, that immunity, so to speak, to that drug, and he needs something better. And that's when he was introduced to street level dealers in Greenville that were selling him heroin. The way we actually were introduced to him was he had a need to keep from getting sick, so he would go buy this heroin, and he didn't have money anymore, so he stole his father's service pistol that was awarded to him when he retired from the Marine Corps, and he stole it and sold it to these guys. So that's how we ended up meeting him. Never one time did he actually never smoked marijuana, and he was the first person that I ever interviewed that had that story, and he's not the last.
Yeah. And so that kind of become a common theme we started seeing was, okay, people would get injured, people would get hurt, they would be medicated through their doctor would, at least now in that 2014-ish, 2012 going forward range, the doctors were starting to cut people off, but unfortunately it was kind of after that, physical addiction to that happened, and we just wasn't educated enough to learn how to taper people off of that stuff. The doctor just wouldn't prescribe it anymore, and these people would have a physical addiction. Their body would get sick. They refer to it. You've heard the term "baby dope sick." If you've watched the Hulu series or read the book, that's what they refer to it as, is dope sick, and they call it the worst flu you could possibly imagine. And if you use heroin or if you use fentanyl or something like that, within a few hours, if you don't use it again, you're going to start feeling that sickness come on. So that's where you start getting a lot of people doing anything they can do to get money or to get drugs. And that's going to be stealing, robbing, breaking into things, like I said, stealing from people they love the most. So that's where some of our other crimes come from too. But you can see here, this is probably one of the stats that kind of blew my mind. It really showed us that for some reason the United States is doing something drastically different from the rest of the world. Is the United States makes up 5% of the world's population, and consumes 80% of the world's opioids. Okay? Why is that? I couldn't tell you. One thing is they actually, and Tommy can tell you more about it, they brought in a new vital sign years ago, which is pain. They decided that pain was a vital sign. I think that was lobbied to get that in there. And so if you were ever into the hospital recently, they go on questionnaires, ask you, how did we treat your pain? Right? If you rated that poorly, that could affect their fundings, that could
affected the hospital rating.
Yeah, it could induce
It affected
lawsuits.
their money.
Yeah, everything. So that become pain is very different for different folks. I mean, everybody has different pain tolerances. So like I said, if you treat your pain, so doctors, to be on the safe side, they're just going to typically here, you take it as needed, but taking it as needed on a very, very potent, very, very addictive substance is not a good idea. Like I said, I had a very severe car accident in 1999, and a doctor let me walk home with a 120-count bottle of Oxycontin. And I truly believe if I'd taken it as the doctor prescribed, I would not be here giving this talk today. Okay? I truly believe that. Tommy had a similar story with a football injury. So the thing we've learned here, it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter who your parents are, it doesn't matter how rich you are, how poor you are, this is something that can rear its head at any point in time in your life. And we just want to make sure people are aware of it. So opioid prescriptions in South Carolina, I know this is tougher to see for folks back here in the back, but in 2019, the state of South Carolina, we were right at 61 people or 61 prescriptions per 100 people. Now that's throughout the year. That doesn't mean 61 people have a prescription. That just means 61 prescriptions were divvied out throughout that year. So per 100 people, 61 people could have a bottle in their hand. In Pickens County in that year, it was 71, a little over 71 per 100 people. The national average at that time was 46. So even the southern states are more effective. Why is that? I really couldn't tell you. I don't know if it's just economics. I don't know if it's societal issues. I really couldn't tell you. But like I said, I do know the poorer the areas, the more it tends to impact, especially up in the West Virginia areas, the Kentuckys, things like that. The lower the socioeconomic status, it seems to affect them greatly on that. And you can see, even down in 2022, We're at, the South Carolina average is 51, Pickens has dropped to 62, so that's better, but now the national average is under 40, right? So we're still behind when it comes to that. Prescription pills to heroin, this is what Tommy talked about. You get cut off from your doctor. Your doctor's actually, unfortunately, the dealer at that point in time, and insurance is paying for that, right? So when the doctor doesn't prescribe it, you're seeking out the same medication with no insurance. So instead of paying, you know, $20, $40 for a bottle, depends on how good your insurance is, could be less than that. Now you're paying $1 a milligram. So a 30 milligram oxycodone is $30. We were interviewing Clemson kids that were getting hooked on this stuff, and we were interviewing kids that were taking 10 to 15 a day. So it's $300 to $450 a day pill habit. So how do they fund that? They sell drugs, home invasions, robberies. That's where we're seeing a lot of the stuff around that 2012, 2013, 2014 area of Clemson, where things were kind of going through the roof. And they were selling a lot of marijuana because that's where all your money comes through. But that money, that profit was going straight into their pill habit. And a lot of times people would see the news reports and they're like, oh, what are y'all worried about marijuana for? There was an underlying issue there. People were robbing and pointing guns at each other and killing each other for the profits to fund their pill habits. That's what really was kind of going on there.
Yeah, that opioid dependency can develop in just 3 days. That's a super short span of time. Think about post-surgery. The story Andy was talking about, I had a shoulder repair after playing football in college, and my wife's here. She was actually my fiance at that time, and she can attest to this, that when I came home to my parents' house, and the doctor had said, hey, here's your Lortab, 10 milligrams, take one every 4 hours, and you'll heal. Well, as a 21-year-old, just finished playing college, my whole objective is I got to get healthy again. So I'm doing exactly what the doctor ordered. And I would sit there and I would sleep, and I'd wake up and I would say, I need my medication. I'd take my medication, I'd go back on the couch and sleep. And luckily my mother, who was in the medical field, came in there and she cut me off. She said, no, you're done. And I hadn't reached the 3rd day, but I was definitely following that cycle that leads to that physiological addiction, to where once it's taken hold of you, it's no longer you're taking medication because you want to feel high or you want to feel it. You just don't want to be sick. If you guys will look on your table, there's a little purple bracelet there, and it says #StopTheStigma. That's what we're talking about. The stigma is someone that's going out and they're using opiates and opioids. They're not doing so because it makes them feel like they're on top of the world. They're doing so because it keeps them from feeling sick. They're doing so because it makes them feel normal. They're doing so because the just barrage that these opiates and opioids have done on their brain, and the physiological and psychological addiction has pushed their natural state of homeostasis so low that they don't feel worth living. And this is what keeps them going and keeps them from being sick. It's not about feeling great. It's just about feeling normal. And we want you guys and we want them to know that we understand that and that there's help available. That's what Stop the Stigma is. Sorry, Angie.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because we want people, because we see this all the time when we do our death investigations or the non-fatal overdoses or poisonings that we deal with, is we actually see a lot of this stuff when we talk to the folks, or if we have their cell phone and we can really dive into this stuff, is they don't like doing this. They don't want to do this. You can tell, they write notes to themselves in their phones where they're apologizing to their parents and their loved ones and their kids and things like that for being worthless and I'm no good and all this stuff. And because they feel that way, they don't want to, they feel like they really can't get help. They don't want to reach out because they don't want people to think of them, as that's just a drug, or that's just somebody using dope. That's a worthless person. That's something we've really told in a lot of this stuff. We've had people, and I get it, the hardness of the heart when it comes to these situations. When we have people that pass away from this, I've heard the statement, oh, it's just one less person to worry, one less dope to worry about. Right? You wouldn't say that if they was your kid.
Exactly.
So, and that's what I try to tell people, and I'm trying to help them understand that, like I said, we can't get these people's help, we can't get them help if they die. And that's what we're really wanting to do, is just really get the stigma away from this so they'll actually reach out Because a lot of our parents that we talked to, they didn't even know their kid had an issue until months and months and months in, and then when they found out about it a couple months later, their kid had passed. So the parents didn't even have time to react. So, but heroin to fentanyl really started coming into the illicit drug world. The first time I saw it, I was on road patrol probably 07, 08 maybe. I arrested a guy, took him to the jail, and when he changed his clothes out, he had a bunch of used fentanyl patches on him. He had about 6. And he ripped one in half and was chewing on one too. Luckily, they've been used, so there wasn't the most potent things in the world. They're transdermal, they're time released, so it's not like the white powder that we see today that hits you instantaneously. That was the first time I'd ever seen fentanyl and actually kind of looked into what it is. But now what we're seeing is, like I said, between the prescription pills, but heroin's when it really come into play. The first part is a lot of our heroin used to come from like Afghanistan. Now it tends to come from Mexico. The drug cartels are very, very good at figuring out what does America want, what does America crave, and we're going to make a lot of money off of that. Well, unfortunately for us, America craves, they were craving opiates, heroin, things like that, so that's what they started producing. They couldn't produce the same quality heroin, so they figured out that they can introduce a little bit of fentanyl in there because a little bit goes a long way, and it would boost the potency of their heroin, so therefore it would sell better. But a lot of that, like I said, our fentanyl, but now when people refer to heroin, they don't actually mean heroin, it's basically fentanyl. We'll have informants and they'll tell us, I'm gonna go buy some heroin, and it comes back all fentanyl. Like nobody really wants, as weird as it is to say, nobody really wants heroin anymore. They're disappointed when they get heroin instead of fentanyl because the people that are using this stuff, their tolerance is built up so high that heroin doesn't even really do that much for them.
That's such a big change. I mean, I was talking to Andy one day, and he come in and said, "You won't believe this. We actually bought real heroin for the first time in a couple of years." It was somebody said we have heroin, and it actually was, and not fentanyl.
Yeah, like I said, we took about 300 grams over to Greenville and got it tested, and it tested actually as heroin, and everybody ran around and looked at it because we hadn't seen actual heroin in like a couple of years. So now, then we started getting our counterfeit pills because, like I said before, your actual pills cost so much. So the counterfeit pills are going to be a little bit cheaper, not all the way cheaper, but they're going to be a little bit cheaper. But the problem with those, they're counterfeit, they're fake. We don't exactly know what's in them. It's not going to be a prescription grade oxycodone or oxycodone or anything like that. So as you can see here, 42% of the fake pills that's tested, these are DEA stats, have a lethal dose of fentanyl in those. So if you crushed that pill up and stored it or smoked it or anything like that, it could kill you. And you don't know what's in it. And this could be anything. They look like Xanaxes, they look like Roxys, Oxys, whatever. If you can make it look like a pill, they can put fentanyl in it. You can put fentanyl in anything, surprisingly enough. But it's perceived as safer, and I think that's why that's kind of the stage where people go from prescription pills to, even when they're buying these pills, we talk to them and they're like, "Hey, are these real pills?" And the people that are buying them are like, "No, they're not real." We're like, "Why are you buying them?" Like, "Well, I just, it's pills. They just don't want to feel like they're using."
There's less of a stigma.
It doesn't have the stigma. It's us. It looks like a pill. This is what doctors give people. I'm just trying to self-medicate. They still perceive it as medication, and that's kind of the biggest problem. But it's, like I said, it's a little bit cheaper. But I know it's tough for you guys to see, so I won't really harp on it too bad. But one side is fake pills, one side is counterfeit pills on this. And for those that can see, you may have guessed wrong, you may have guessed right. When we first started, we would buy a pill, and me and Tommy could look at it and tell you from right here, that's a fake pill. Or if we could manipulate it inside a bag, we could tell just by the texture.
Yeah,
that's
the
a fake
binders
pill.
were weak. They weren't using good quality, high grade chemicals to help bind their fillers.
Yeah, they would, and weirdly enough, the best way I can describe how it looks is it always looked like someone had licked it because the stamp wasn't very good. But now, just like anything else, they've gotten better at producing the fake pills. So now the real pills actually don't look as good as the counterfeit pills because your counterfeiters spending actual time making sure they look good. Your pharmaceutical companies, they're just stamping these things because they legally have to mark their pills. Your counterfeiters are making sure that their dyes are perfect, the binders the right way, so it's got a good consistency, so they're actually trying to actively trick people.
And this is such a big deal for us, and we really harp on this with our younger group, because so many times people do get a prescription, and then when they have that addiction, they know that there's all these dangers out there. They may not want to move to heroin, they may not want to move to fentanyl, but maybe they still like Xanaxes, maybe they still seek that feeling they get from that, so that's what they want to purchase. And that's why at the bottom of the banner up there says the word poisoned by fentanyl. Because an individual that gets alprazolam thinks they're buying an alprazolam, thinks they're taking a Xanax, and they die of fentanyl. They didn't overdose. They were poisoned. And Andy always gives a great analogy of this. He equates it to, if I rode over here at McDonald's or Burger King, Hardee's, Wendy's, whatever, and I ordered a cheeseburger, and I came in here and ate it, and I killed over dead, and they said, oh, he died of fentanyl. No one in here would say I overdosed on fentanyl. No one would say I overdosed on a cheeseburger. They would say someone poisoned his food. Well, what's the difference if I wanted to take a Xanax and got fentanyl? It's still a poison.
And so our death total, like I said, it's over 100,000 a year, so basically more than the Vietnam War on a yearly basis is what we're losing when it comes to overdose deaths. From the age of 18 to 45 years old, if you pass away, so me, if I drop dead right here, right now, the Vegas odds would be that it was fentanyl related. Not a heart attack, not cancer, not a car accident. The reason if you pass away from 18 to 45 years old is going to be fentanyl related. That's the leading cause of death. So that's why we're really trying to get this word out. It's just, it's crazy what this stuff does. So like I said, it's always rising, but like I said, more than suicide, gun violence, and car accidents. This is the new kind of 2022 stats. When I say new 2022 stats, we get our official stats from DHEC. They're about 2 years behind. I added this to this PowerPoint like 2 days ago. That's how fresh it is from the website. So as you can see, it's still rising up a little bit. We're basically just under 2,000 deaths in South Carolina from drugs. So getting into some of the stats there, like I said, the 2,200 drug-related, those were prescriptions. So of the almost 2,300 deaths in South Carolina in 2022, 1,800 of those were opioids, 1,600 of those were fentanyl. So those by far the leading cause of death. So, and you can see here, just over 1,000 were vehicle accidents. So less people died in South Carolina from vehicle accidents than they did from fentanyl.
Which is a crazy number, because how many of you today came in a vehicle? Yeah. Every single one of us traveled, and every single one of us took the risk of dying in a car, yet you were more likely to die from a fentanyl poisoning today than being in an accident in a vehicle. That's a strong statistic there.
So looking around, so we looked at South Carolina, so now I try to just keep zooming in. So look around the upstate. Anderson County had a little bit of an increase in 2021, 2022. Greenville the same. Oconee had a drop. Pickens, thankfully, we had a little bit of a drop. Spartanburg County, they had almost a 19% increase. So the increases you can see, the state average between 2021 to 2022, the state average was a 7.5% increase. Luckily, Pickens County, we were at a little over 7% decrease. So we were under the state average from 2021 to 2022. So there's hope. Every time I gave these talks several years ago when I was talking about this, I always said I wanted to see the first year where it started to go down. And this was that year. It seems like 2021 hopefully was our peak, and maybe it peaked with COVID. COVID was where you really saw the hockey stick. People ask why. The best thing I can give is people were isolated. They were left to their own devices. This tends to really hit on folks that are lonely, that are anxious, that already have issues. What did COVID do? It just made you more lonely, more anxious, right? So, and it left you longer around your devices. And so I really think that's where that increased usage come from was that COVID.
Yeah, I equate that to if I'm sitting at home and my daughter has baked a cake or something and I have nothing to do, I'll have that whole cake eaten before the day's over because it's there and I have nothing to do. And that's the same mentality as if this person who, like Andy said, is already suffering from a mental illness and they're self-medicating, or they're suffering from that that physiological addiction, when they have nothing to occupy their time. I mean, we all have something that we do. When we're bored, everybody has something that they go to, whether it's they pull out their electronic device, or maybe you like to garden, or you like to knit, or you like to crochet, or you paint, or you lift weights, you work it. Everybody has something that they do to occupy time. Well, when that's stripped from you, you're left to your own devices. And when you suffer from one of these addictions, and that's there, that's what you're going to go to.
And so this, looking at some of the deaths in 2022, you can see the actual number of deaths beside in white. The yellow is the state average, that is the per capita rate. So per 100,000 residents rate. So the state average rate is a little over 33.5. So 33.5 folks out of 100,000. Anderson was at 21, Greenville's a little over 40, Oconee's 12, Pickens was 27, Spartanburg was 44. So even going to Pickens, that ranks 26 in the state. So we're the 15th most populous county, I believe. It ranks 26 in the state, so we're below the average. And I hope we can keep it that way, like I said. So it's, but that's still, I mean, 31. That's 31 too many. Right? That's still 31 too many. We're not done. We're not done fighting this thing. But we're hoping some of the awareness and some of the talks we're doing, some of the interdiction stuff we're doing, is hopefully making a difference. So there's the map of South Carolina. As you can see, the below state average. That's where Pickens is at least for the 2022 DHEC stuff. And like I said, I just put this on here just a couple of days ago. So total drug deaths in Pickens County, as you can see, 20. So now we're just looking at Pickens County. 2020 was at 40. The ones in white's total drug overdose deaths or total drug deaths. The ones in yellow are fentanyl related. Okay, so the ones in yellow were just strictly talking about fentanyl. So we were at 40 in 2020 with 23, and as you can see, we went up to 2021 was 55. That's the highest we've had, and probably the highest we've ever had. And then 2022 come down, but we still had the exact same number on fentanyl-related deaths. 2023, the numbers I got from the coroner's office were actually lower. Hopefully, the DHEC stats when they come out next year will show that, because we were officially at 19. It's probably 20, maybe even 21, because I know on New Year's Eve we had a couple passed away, and I'm not 100% sure, but like I said, odds are it was probably fentanyl related. So it's probably in the low 20s there. So like I said, better than what we were, but not done yet. So, like I said, they've already talked about some of our overdose stuff. The biggest thing with behavioral health today, get some Narcan. We won't harp on exactly what Narcan is, what it does. I mean, it reverses the effects of opioids. That's the Cliff Notes versions of it. Other things like I'm telling you, it won't hurt anybody. If they're not overdosing, if they're not using opioids, we could use it right here, right now, today, and it's fine. It's just like squirting water up your nose. Okay? It's not going to our drug disposal sites. So we do a pill take back event in the spring and the fall of every year. We've done it ever since I've been, I guess, in narcotics. We typically bring in about 200, 250 pounds of pills on each one of those events. Those go to Tennessee, Kentucky, get incinerated. But at any time, if you have medication at home, or if you're just doing a cleaning out of the closets, just put them in a Ziploc bag and bring them up here to Easley PD, take them to the sheriff's office. We'll be happy to take them in anytime. So don't just sit them around waiting and then you accidentally miss the day and think you have to wait until the spring or the fall. No, you can bring them by anytime. We accept them year round.
Well, and the overdose signs, things that you can look for before we get kind of light on time. The question that we get so frequently is, how do we beat this, right? And I would be dishonest to stand up here and tell you that we can get rid of it, that we're going to squash it and it's going to go away and we'll never see another overdose death ever. And it's not a matter of how do we beat it, it's how do we battle it, how do we fight for that one life, how do we drive those numbers down. And I'm here to tell you, you've taken the first step today. Supporting this group is step one. In this room, you've got behavioral health. In this room, you have a group of parents who have taken it upon themselves to help educate the citizens. In this room, you have lawmakers, you have councilmen, you have law enforcement. That's what it takes. It takes all of us forming a team together and combating it from all the different directions. Because every user is different, every addict is different. Some of them need tough love from us. Some of them need to sit in a jail cell and dry out. Some of them need to go get some help. You know, and I can tell you, I was against the medicinal stuff for a long time, because I was always of the opinion you're trading one drug for another. But what do we do when we're sick? What do we do when we have an illness? We take a medication to help relieve our symptoms that helps us get better. And that's all they're offering, is an opportunity to relieve those symptoms so that someone can provide a safe way to recovery when things get hard. And that's all we ask of you is to join in that partnership with us. You know, if you know someone that's suffering from addiction, let them know that we don't dislike them, we don't hate them. We love the sinner. We just hate the sin, and we hate that addiction. And we will do everything we can and give them all the assets we can to try to help them. And if that requires them to sit in a jail cell, that's what we're going to do. To those that are selling it, different story. We're going to put you in jail. We're going to. And now that we have trafficking fentanyl laws, and I still haven't heard on the drug-induced homicide law, didn't pass yet. Okay, so that's another one we need your help fighting for, is a law that allows us to hold those accountable who sell drugs to people that kill them. We need that. We absolutely need that.
They need to
But
get it listed as poison. Cyanide is poison, anthrax is poison. Kids nowadays, their drugs has been around for a long time, but the kids nowadays, their drugs are being laced with kids.
Yeah. Well, and it's poison in a dosage. It has its medicinal purposes, unlike many other substances. So it does have its purpose, just like many other things, which is why it's controlled the way it is. But is partnering with us and reaching out to your lawmakers, calling them, asking them to push forward on those laws, supporting us. If you see something, say something. If you know someone that's suffering addiction, push them in the right direction. All right, let them know that we understand that they're sick and that they need help. But if you see those signs that we had up there, that's when Narcan is absolutely 100% an amazing tool. The way it works is you have receptors in your brain, like I said, that are designed for the opioids, and it actually knocks it out of the receptor and replaces it. The cool thing about it is it has no physiological reaction to the body, so when it fills that slot, it does nothing. That's why we could use it right here today, and it will do nothing. It'll just sit there in that receptor. The only negative thing would be is if I did have pain and I took an opioid, it wouldn't work until I metabolized that Narcan.
And so the biggest thing is the reason we kind of push folks for Narcan. I mean, we've Narcan someone just in the Dollar General parking lot before. Like I said, you've seen somebody in the parking lot, like they're sleeping very, very deep. You see that real shallow breathing, things like that. That's when you really want to just call 911. Like I said, or like I said, you've got the wherewithal or the Narcan. You can Narcan those folks. You're not going to hurt them by using it. Just be wary though, if someone does come out of it using Narcan, it tends the best way I've described it's almost like throwing cold water on somebody to wake them up. You get that kind of adrenaline dump, wake up. But if somebody gets Narcan, they need to go to the hospital. They need to go to the hospital. The Narcan will wear off faster than the fentanyl will or the opioids will. So you can actually, when the Narcan wears off, they can re-overdose. Okay, depends on what's in their system. So it's very important that they get medical assistance if they've overdosed. But just some of the stuff like what are we doing here locally? One of the biggest things, obviously, our proactive drug interdiction that we do, our Pill Take Back program. Like I said, we've done that forever. Our cooperation with state, federal, and local agencies. That's our biggest things. Our kind of partnership we've done. We've been doing it forever, but specifically when it comes to fentanyl, like Tommy said, South Carolina does not have the law for a distribution involving death. And what that does, but in the federal system they do. So, and other states they do. North Carolina has one. Like I said, the surrounding states have one. We need to have one. What it does is it removes that intent away, because in South Carolina we have to prove intent that you tried to harm someone. and we'll get to that a little bit more detail here in just a minute. But so this year that didn't pass. The lawmakers didn't care for some of the wording in there. I haven't heard exactly what wording was in there. I'd love to kind of figure it out so we can get that passed. We need it because even if it takes till next year, now this is 6-7 months worth of deaths that we may have to investigate with really no law on the books to really hold anybody accountable. We can charge some distributions. We've done that locally. I can go through someone's phone, or I can interview some folks, talk to family members, surveillance footage if I know where they went or where they were at, and I can charge someone with a distribution of drugs. You know, we've done that before. But in the federal system, if we meet a very high standard that the federal courts want us to have, which is dang near it being on video, then we can prosecute them federally, which is what we've done using between Homeland Security. Greenville County helps us out on that, doing the liaison for some of that stuff. Our local agent or state SLED, we'll talk about that. We partner with them, do a lot of our state grand jury cases. I'll show you a quick video here in a minute on the latest one we did, specifically related to fentanyl. Our local agencies, even here in Pickens County, Pickens Police Department, Easley Police Department, those guys, have some part-time, I say part-time overdose investigators, because that's what we all end up being, or death investigators when it comes to drugs. Chris Griffin, Tim Sargent were there. Greenville County, like I said, we got a representative here from them. They have 2 dedicated over drug death investigators, Gray Bowers and Investigator Owens. So we're very, very thankful for them, because these drugs don't stay in Pickens, they don't stay in Greenville, they cross the lines. We'll have plenty of times where a dealer from Pickens went to Greenville and sold and someone passed, and we have dealers that come from Greenville, come to Pickens County and sell, and then they pass. So wherever we figure out where the distribution took place at, we've handed off case files before, just to get the jurisdictional issues right. So that's something we do. Following cases from beginning to end, so once we start investigating a case, we're there. We're there the whole time. I've worked the case since January 2021 on a case, not the easiest one to investigate. I found a dealer for a person that's passed away. They're pleading guilty, hopefully, June 5th. We'll be there in court. We were there in court 2 months ago speaking to the judge. The judge actually told the person, hey, if you plead guilty today, I'm going to give you more than you think you're going to get. Because we've been educating our judges as well on this stuff. Because judges in the past couple of years, they thought the same thing. They're like, it's appeal, right? And the defense attorneys be like, Your Honor, this is just appeal. You can get it from your doctor. And so they wasn't understanding the full scope of this. Now I think they do. They hear fentanyl now, especially coming from us, and they're kind of tired of this too, I believe. So our drug education presentations we're doing, like I said, me and Tommy's done this for years and years and years. We used to go to the high schools before COVID. Basically every 9th grader at Pickens High School would see us on a yearly basis. Done some stuff with YLA this year. So like I said, we're anytime, I've told some of our folks, if you give me a broom closet to speak in and one person will listen to me, I'll give this presentation, right? We're just trying to get this word out. So churches, local community groups will be happy to come. We've done this presentation for the last couple of years now. Working closely with our rehab facilities. Like I said, behavioral health's our good local partner just right up the road from us. They've been amazing. They've been very helpful for us. They're a good resource because when I'm interviewing someone whose wife may have passed away and they have an addiction as well and they have kids, the last thing we want to happen to that husband is obviously him passing away too, because those kids are now solely dependent on him. We're not interviewing that person so I can lock him up because he uses drugs. So we've proactively tried to take them to behavioral health. We give them the phone numbers. We give them the addresses. I've offered to drive them up there myself to get them the help and start with that. But as Angie mentioned before, our rehab program that they've started in the jail, we use the South Carolina opioid funds, the grant money for that. They've been doing that for 2 years now. Is this the second one? So successfully throughout the last year. That's been a great program. I can tell the difference when I'm interviewing somebody now in the jail and they're in that program. They're, like I said, a lot more with us. They're a lot more positive on their outlook of when they get out. And we don't have to worry about when they get out of prison, they've been sitting in a jail cell, they have no tolerance anymore. They get out and like this could be a lifelong addiction for these people. They use the same amount that they used before they went in jail, and they pass away because their body does not have a tolerance anymore. Hopefully now, they can get that with that medical assisted treatments. They can start stepping their dosage down, and they'll be in full contact with behavioral health when they leave our jail, and they can get the help they need. That's been very successful in my opinion on that. Just some quick photographs we'll run through. Like I said, I know we're getting kind of short on time. But this is what I talk about, the transdermal patches. So this is what you would traditionally see in medications. So fentanyl is typically used in a medical system for end-of-life patient care, any type of sedative. If you've ever been put under for surgery or anything like that, there's a good chance they'll use fentanyl. That's, like I said, that's normally about our pill take back haul, a couple 100 pounds of pills that we get a couple times a year. These are some fake pills, just showing some stuff to look out for. So one of the biggest paraphernalia things that we'll see when it comes to fentanyl and pills is your straws, your aluminum foil, lighters. Obviously, you see your scale, little bitty digital scales, baggies, things like that. So as a parent, aunt, uncle, whoever, keep an eye out for this stuff. If you see this stuff, like I said, you'll know what you're dealing with, okay? I wouldn't mess with it or touch it. Call us. We'll come and get it out of your way, and try to see if we can get the person the appropriate help they need. The spoons, you'll see the spoons with the cotton balls where they can filter out their syringes. Again, fake pills, different designs, Xanaxes, Oxys, Roxys. There's a straw with a little bit of residue inside. Sometimes you see that white powder inside of straws, because what they'll do, they'll put it on aluminum foil, light it, and then they'll use the straw to kind of suck up the vapors. Or you can snort it too. Your little baggies, your little jewelry baggies, there's never really used for jewelry. Right? It's always some residue. So this is on a search warrant we had. You can see just the powder that's just around everywhere. That's something you still want to be cautious of. Fentanyl isn't, we've all seen I've heard some people mention it even last night, talking about I've seen where people put it on dollar bills or $20 bills and throw it on Walmart, and they wait for you to pass out and they kidnap you and stuff. It's a little bit more of a fear propaganda. That's something they're using so things can get shared on Facebook. The more things get shared on Facebook, they can eventually flip what the post is, and it'll be like a scam website, a scam link that you click on. So that's not as accurate most of the time. This is the same post you see where there's a missing puppy dog in Bakersfield or something, right? It gets shared 200 times, and it's just fake. It's just a fake post. Is it dangerous? Would I touch it? No. But if you do touch it, if you do encounter it, just wash your hands off with water. Wash off a surface with water. Don't use hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer will cause it to expand the pores in your skin, and it could possibly affect you there. But the biggest thing when people say they touch it, it's not that it necessarily absorbs through your skin like we originally thought when we first started dealing with this. Because when we started getting training on it, it was like, oh, if you touch it, yeah, you're going to overdose and die. Or if you breathe it in or anything like that, it could be dangerous. But if you do touch it, what do we know, especially now after COVID, what do we do with our hands? We're eventually going to touch our nose, touch our eyes, touch our mouth. That's where, when people thought they touched it, they introduced it in their system a different way. So, but still something to be very cautious of. This is tough to tell, but that's a slightly, it's purple. So sometimes the colored powders that you'll see, the colors really don't mean anything. It's just whatever the dealer decided to use to dye it in, things like that. So just because you see a color doesn't mean that it's a certain chemical. It could be anything. These were fake Xanaxes we were buying from a Clemson student. We had to buy 100 at a time. That was his minimum order, was 100 at a time. So we purchased from him a couple times. Done a search warrant on his apartment, found over 500 pills at his apartment. All of them were counterfeit, all of them were fake. He was using the dark web, cryptocurrency, things like that to get them shipped in. That's very typical, especially for that area, the Clemson area that we'll see. These were thousands of pressed pills that come from Central. We did a search warrant there. You can see this thousands of pills just in that bag. You can see where they started to kind of powder up. That was kind of your not as quality pressed pills. They start rubbing together and start turning more into a powder. Again, these were thousands of pills. This is our CAT team. We got some information where we believe this one individual was going to gas stations and sitting for a while and meeting with folks. So our CAT guys went and kind of did a little traffic stop on that guy. This was the first time we got him. We got him again after he got out of jail, bonded out. We got him again. He's in our jail now, no bonded, thankfully. This was about almost 100 grams of heroin bricked up. The crazy thing about this heroin that always just weirds me out is that heroin was from me to Tommy. There were 2 kids watching cartoons, right? And this was out open in a chest of drawers, just laid open like it is, right? So just right there within reach. So same thing. This was 4 ounces of heroin. This was back with 4 ounces of heroin. That was like a lot of heroin. That's a kilo of methamphetamine. All that got delivered to us. We got it delivered and did a takedown there. You can see that's green, but that's fentanyl. So I believe that was close to probably 50-ish grams, give or take of that. That was a search warrant we did in between Easley and Bakersfield. I'll give that area. This was an ounce of fentanyl that we purchased. So this was a search warrant in the Easley going towards Powdersville area. This is where the 300 grams of heroin come from. This was almost 70 grams of fentanyl here. This is crack cocaine, so that's trafficking crack. That's a crack cookie that's busted up. Like I said, you'll see your methamphetamine through here, so a couple hundred grams of meth, and the bluish, greenish powder there was ecstasy. So this guy had just a little bit of everything. Obviously a couple guns. This same thing, this was a couple hundred grams of fentanyl. That was a kilo of cocaine. So I said, well, hopefully, if you can't hear this, well.
People are facing charges related to overdose deaths right here in the upstate.
Officials say it's the first time in the state someone has been charged with murder directly related to a fentanyl death. Fox County's Brooklyn Cromer was in the courtroom today when one of the moms of the victims spoke up.
She had an emotional message asking the judge to deny bond to the man who is now charged with her daughter's murder. Take a listen.
653 days ago, our lives was renewed and we're over. What I saw that morning, no human should ever have to see, and I still relive that day over and over in my mind. They not only killed her that night, but killed me as well.
That was the mom of Emily Turner. The state says Dean Wilmington sold Turner the drugs that resulted in her death. That's why the state says he's charged with murder. At his bond hearing earlier, the state said the fentanyl Turner bought from Wilmington was powerful, causing her to overdose so quickly that she had the lighter and drugs still in her hand. Chief Attorney Creighton Waters says he hopes this murder charge sends a message to dealers.
One other time have we charged, and the state grand jury charged a fentanyl and opiate dealer with murder. And we're doing it again. It is a very aggressive legal strategy. But if we are using the tools that we have in the law, and we believe the law supports that. I've always said that you don't hit home runs if you're afraid to strike out, and we're swinging for the fences with this.
Amanda Massengale and Raphael Suber are charged with 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder in the death of Emily Turner and in the death of another victim, Nathan Flogger, who also died from a fentanyl overdose in Pickens County in 2022. David Thrift is also charged with conspiracy to commit murder for his involvement in Flogger's death. The judge denied bond for all 4 of those defendants. The bond hearings continue on Thursday morning for the remaining suspects. Reporting in Greenville County, Brooklyn Cromer, Fox, Carolina.
Else 911.
So you can see that was our Devil in the Sky state grand jury case. Myself, agents were SLED, Greenville County, we started seeing some links on some of our death investigations that we've been doing. Took it down to the Attorney General's office, met with Creighton, worked with him for years and years. He's always been fantastic to work with us on our drug cases. He was very aggressive in this. really wanted to try to do something, especially to try to push the new laws. And like I said, during the course of that case, we got evidence where we believe that there's a disregard for human life on these drug dealers. They're actually advertising the potency of their drugs based on how many people it's killed. Okay, so that's a disregard for human life. So that's why these people got charged with murder. They're trying to profit from people dying. So like I said, that case was 64 people got arrested, over 400 charges, all of them basically being everything from traffic, like you said, murder, accessories before the fact, after the fact, etc. Great case, made a big impact. We were working on that for a long time. And like I said, Greenville did a fantastic job on helping us on that. We couldn't have done it without partnering up with, like I said, our state, local municipalities, and like I said, our partner counties on that case. That was a big deal. That's the biggest case, or the case that I'm most proud of since I've been in law enforcement. Right. So we talked about the distribution involving death. Obviously, we'd like to get that passed. So like I said, just talk to your lawmakers. Tell them that South Carolina needs something. We need something to go off of. These death investigations are very, very tough to do. They're very hard to trace back and really pinpoint enough for a charge currently. If we have that law, we could definitely do something for these families. Like I said, sometimes we can give them an answer of who may have gave it to them, but sometimes it doesn't meet the threshold for like a murder charge or anything. So it ends up being basically just a distribution. So this is very similar to, you see the banners and things we've had up here. This was really one of the first ones I did. Jennifer Bernard, she sent this to me when I first was kind of really making these drug talks, and she's like, hey, if this will help your talk. And so this is, like I said, over 100 and something people on here. We've talked about, 2,200 people died in 2022 just in South Carolina, things like that. People died. Like I said, our EMS runs a call. Well, they average a call per day. Okay. Thankfully, the majority of those are non-fatal overdoses, but at any point in time, they could be a fatal overdose. So EMS is swamped. We're swamped with it. But we give a bunch of these numbers, and the numbers are cold, right? Numbers are just numbers, right? It's statistics. It's math. It doesn't really compute. But when you put a face to every one of those numbers, that's where I think it really starts hitting home. If you look on the S6 one down, that's Brandon Menard. He's also over there. And like I said, he was really the first overdose case, or the first poisoning death case that I kind of got introduced to because our detectives were working. And like I said, really helped change the way we were kind of working and doing these things, and really proactively pushing this. And that was early 2021. So, Tommy, we can wrap up and take questions.
I mean, we talked about what you guys can do, and these posters are why we do it. Like Andy said, numbers get cold, statistics get cold. We can sit here and say, hey, this many, 31 people died in Pickens County. And the fact of the matter is, that's 31 sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, grandchildren, friends. Those aren't just numbers. Those are people. That's 31 dreams, hopes, desires that have been washed away. And I go back to if we can save one, because you never know the exponential good that happens from that one person. You never know what they're going to go on to do, how many lives they're going to go on to save. And so that's why we will exhaust all efforts. We will spend our entire career, and that's our only goal, is one. And when we get one, we'll fight for the next one. And we won't stop fighting. Is it an uphill battle? Absolutely. But any good fight is going to be hard. And this is one definitely worth fighting. And I want to thank you guys for being here to help support us, help support the Foothills Fentanyl fight. Don't be a stranger. Reach out and look for ways that you can help us battle this. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much, Andy and Tommy. We really appreciate it. We are going to take about 10 more minutes to give you time to look at the silent auction items. But before we do that, There's a couple of things that I would like to do. If you are in this room and you've lost someone to fentanyl poisoning, would you please stand? So it's here. I just wanted everybody to put a face with the families that have lost their loved ones. Kind of the reason that Foothills Fentanyl Fight got started is we at Behavioral Health created a documentary, and some of the moms in this room were involved in that documentary, and they decided that they wanted to do more after that. And so I just want to give a shout out. They're going to hate this. Kim Chastain and Brandy Morgan have kind of taken the lead on this group of family members, and they are awesome working with the loved ones who have lost family members, and they are just killing it when it comes to raising awareness and taking tragedy and making something good out of it. So yeah, you can have a seat. Thank you very much. We're going to give you, like I said, about 10 minutes to bid on this silent auction stuff. Please make sure you leave your phone number just in case you may have to leave before we announce the winners. That way the Foothills Fentanyl Fight folks will contact you, get you your prize, and collect everything. Again, thank you so much for coming. Take about 10 minutes, mingle, bid, get some Narcan, some free stuff. Foothills Fentanyl Fight has a donation jar and some materials up here that you can purchase. Yeah, thank y'all for coming very much.